My name is Celia Cano, here with Marine Technology TV, here at Oceanology International in London. Today, I'm here with Carsten Haagensen, President of Data Services here at Ocean Infinity. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Celia. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to start by just talking a little bit about you and your role. So if you could provide a brief career background and an overview of your responsibilities here at Ocean Infinity.
Yeah, so my background, I guess, is a little bit peculiar. Actually, an economist of background, started as a consultant, spent 15, 20 years in the offshore mix, anything from offshore drilling to offshore construction vessels and all sorts of offshore work scopes. Then I did a fair bit in software, so actually scaling companies that integrate software, and I've been working in heavy engineering companies trying to repurpose nutrients and energy out of wastewater sludge before taking a plunge back into the marine industry with a view of trying to transform the way we operate offshore, joining Ocean Infinity at that time. So that's a very brief sort of headline of what my background is. And my current role is basically responsible for all of our data acquisition and execution offshore. So anything from the assets we build, the technology we deploy, the way we interact with our customers, the way we go and execute the projects, the way we deliver the data, ultimately the end result to the customers. So that's sort of my responsibilities today.
Fantastic. Well, very cool career trajectory. I like that it's kind of unusual in terms of how you got here. So I want to start by looking at Ocean Infinity as a company. Can you give us just a brief overview of, what Ocean Infinity focuses on, and then, by the numbers, what the company looks like today?
Yeah, so Ocean Infinity's vision, like my career, is actually about transforming operations at sea for the betterment of people and planet. So that is what drives us. Today we're around 600 people globally operating. We have a fleet of 14 large vessels and a host of smaller assets. And a lot of our payloads are remote robotics, actually to be able to execute offshore. And so that's sort of the size of the company today.
Awesome. And from where you sit, what challenges are you seeing that are really, the offshore industry are facing the most today?
Yeah, so I think what I'm seeing is actually the reason why I got back into the offshore industry, which was that this is a generational industry. It's one of the oldest in the world, and it's been built over decades and generations of this is the way you perform, these are the assets, this is the vessel, this is the organization, this is the work scope, these are the processes, these are the systems. That has led to how we operate today. And that frame, in that meantime, it's become so rigid and robust that it actually prevents us from using technologies that are proven in other industries to truly transform. We simply hit a point of where you can only do incremental improvements and no longer transformational shifts, which is what we're trying to achieve in Ocean Infinity. And that is what brought me back to this part of the industry.
So what changes when operations are set to be executed from onshore as opposed to just being supported from onshore?
It's a good question, Celia. I guess the short answer is everything. So everything really changes from the assets you need to perform, the systems you need to have in place, the capabilities, the people, the organization, the process, the delivery, all of it really changes. So the key is, how do you make sure that you transform in a pace where all of this are sort of kept synchronized, and so that you don't sacrifice on any of the gains of the current model. But it's sort of really everything that changes in that scope. And that's why, as I said before, the frame is so rigid that trying to do that is like pulling a string into a very, very complex sort of ball of spaghetti. You just can't even get to that point because it gets so complex before you even start that you never really go on that journey. And that's, of course, why what excites us is trying to solve that and trying to actually push the industry, not just for us, but for the whole industry of transformations.
Fantastic. And I want to look at maritime digitalization as well. Can you touch on that and how Ocean Infinity is viewing that trend and what you're doing actively as part of that?
Yeah, so the reason why we talk about offshore robotics is actually just one part of it. The other part is, of course, software, automation, autonomous vessels, but also AI. So actually coupling all of that together into a systemic approach to delivery of data, which is ultimately what our customers are after, understanding the seabed or whatever subsea infrastructure that they're looking at. What we see is that the reason why we actually end up building so many of these assets is because the platform, again, was very prohibitive in enabling that. But what we're envisaging is a world where you as a customer has full transparency into the data that you want. You can get it faster, cheaper, with less people involved, with the highest quality, so that you can make the best informed decisions. Essentially having the offshore execution done more or less automatically, optimized through software, obviously supported by humans, but being able to actually outline the most efficient way of performing that work scope. So for us, digitalization is the entire system. It is not one-off, it is the combination of things. And that's, of course, where complexity comes in and why it's not a small effort.
Well, I appreciate how you're looking at things as a whole system and kind of touching on that idea of things as one kind of large issue as opposed to individual. A lot of companies look at sustainability and safety as separate priorities. And I was wondering if you talk about Ocean Infinity's take on that.
But it's a very interesting observation. I actually find it to be exactly the same. So you'd have different teams, a sustainability team and a safety team, and they would have their own processes, their own systems, and they all report sort of separately. And I think the way that we see the world is that we think of technology first. So we design by technology. We look at the outcome and the design of how to actually get there. And in our view, the design to achieve both of those or to get it to the highest level of performance is the same. Our design is to have as few people exposed to risk and involved as humanly possible. So using robots and technology to enable that. That in reality really means fewer people offshore, fewer flights, 25% less fuel consumption because you can do it with a lot smaller assets getting things done. And there's a lot of other evidence to that. It also means from a sustainability angle that we can allow people to now have offshore careers onshore. So we have a complete different act into the talent pool of today and in the society of tomorrow, which means that sustainability-wise, we actually have a much wider field to play from. So for us, it's actually the same. It's all about how you design for the outcome. And for us, sustainability, safety, performance, data quality is all part of the same design.
Fantastic. Well, last question. I want to look kind of into the future for Ocean Infinity. What's next in terms of investments, technology, projects, things that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, so I think as I mentioned sort of in the opening, Ocean Infinity is a technology company and actually not an asset company. So the reason why we've ended up investing in a series of assets is because we needed that platform to actually be able to unlock the transformation towards a new way of marine or maritime execution offshore. The intent is not for us necessarily to build more. Our vision is that technology spreads so that others in the industry, whether they're in our sector or other parts of marine or even outside of marine, will enable or will find the same value of using the technology that we bring about. So for us, it's the next wave is how do we get to a point where others start onboarding the potential of all of the products that we have built in order to deliver that system of sort of performance and safety.